What's going on, everyone? My name is Johnny Bandon, and I will be your main instructor for this CCNA video course. And in this video, we're going to go over a very important topic on our IP services section. So that is going to be quality of service. So as I prepared to teach you about quality of service, I thought to myself just how deep this topic is. And I thought back to 2014-15 when I started learning about CCNA. Quality of service is always something that, as a junior network admin or someone getting into the field, tends to confuse you. It tends to be every network does it different, and it can be really robust and really in-depth QoS technologies. Not only the technologies, but really the architecture and engineering behind QoS in different environments. QoS never looks the same on any one environment. A lot of the times our quality of service controls and technologies, tools, and implementations we do is really purpose built for our enterprise and the different LAN, WAN, and CAN architectures that we are in charge of maintaining and making available to our users. So as I began to kind of game plan how I want to teach QoS to a CCNA student, I try to put myself in Cisco's shoes and why they put this in the exam. We never like to assume, right? But as the CCNA, maybe you're getting into networking, it is assumed that your role is going to be somewhere between junior network admin or network admin. And again, this is for the people jumping into IT. Not that you've been doing Juniper for 12 years and now you want to get into Cisco and you already know this stuff. This is for the new person, the new guy, the new girl, coming in to be that junior or network admin. More than likely, you're not going to be in charge of implementing a QoS policy enterprise-wide through different internet service providers on that MPLS network or whatever the case may be, right? But it is your job to understand so that when you get that white paper documentation from the senior engineers or from that network architect, you can read through and understand the terminology and maybe why they implemented certain QoS technologies on your own environment. And that kind of makes sense if you look at it that way, why we need to learn the fundamentals of QoS. Because you don't want to be on a network where you haven't even heard the vocabulary, maybe understand to read the syntax a little bit, or you don't want to be that new guy that's constantly having to be taught fundamentals. So it is actually a good thing, I think, that Cisco put this in here. Now, with that being said, in preparation to teach you this, I read the Cisco press book on QoS. I watched some of my favorite trainers, like multiple CCIEs, deep dive into this for 10 to 12 hours. QoS can be very deep, and you'll learn one thing, let's say queuing or policing, and you find out that on the CLI, there is so many different ways you can implement shaping with queuing and how to classify. The MQC is what it's called, the Modular Quality of Service Cisco Command Line. Wow, when you question mark that, there is a lot of options just for classifying and marking traffic. So I decided to try to make this just a general overview of QoS, which aligns with the CCNA exam objectives. So if we get out of my Canva presentation and go to the CCNA exam objectives here on the learningnetwork.cisco.com, one of their little subdomains, if you come here to IP services, which is only 10% of the overall exam, QoS is only one subsection of that. So if this is 8 subsections and a 10% part of the exam, this is like maybe 1.25% of the exam, right? Without getting too deep into the math. So we're not going to spend 3 to 4 hours going over QoS like we could, and that one day you should. But what we are going to do is follow these exam objectives, and we're going to go over at a very high level. When I mean high level, like a top-down overview, bird's eye view of what these words mean. We are going to cover what classification, marking, queuing, congestion, policing, and shaping are. These are all QoS terms and things that can be configured and implemented and engineered on your enterprises. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump back into our presentation here. And let's go over our agenda. So what are we going to go over and which order are we going to do it? So when you learn QoS, you're going to kind of learn that there's a flow to things. So you got to pick how you want to apply QoS. That's step one. And then you got to pick from your plan and how you want to implement it, how we're going to classify and mark data, how we're going to queue it, which gets priority, what kind of queuing method we're going to do, how we're going to shape or police that data, and then we go and do the configuration. And that's really the flow when you plan QoS. So the way I did the topics, or the way I laid out my the learning for QoS is, again, we're going high level overview, why we need it, because that's important to understand why we even have this technology or why we need it. We're going to go over the different QoS models, which again is another high level overview. There's only 3, and you're going to understand this, like where there's differentiated, and then best effort, and another one. And then we're going to go into kind of the flow of how you would honestly configure QoS in the first place and how you should plan it out. So we're going to go over the QoS tools, classification and marking. That should be about one video in itself. And then we're going to go over queuing, how we're going to queue the traffic we just marked and classified, if we need to queue, and when we need to queue, essentially for congestion, right? When there's congestion on the link. And then we're going to go over how we can shape and police traffic or traffic coming out of the queues that we set up, how we do that, and when we want to ingress and egress. And then, and these are probably each be a video in itself, and then we're going to go into the configuration and verification. So this is going to be a slide deck in a lab. Again, the lab is going to be very simple. You're going to be kind of surprised in the simplicity of it. Just kind of like our FTP, TFTP labs will be, and SNMP labs. Because the CCNA doesn't talk about additional feature configuration. They actually don't even they don't ask you to know how to configure it. But it would feel disingenuous of me if I didn't at least show you the CLI and how to classify, queue, and then apply, right? And also shape, of course, and police. And then we go over verification. So this will be a lab, and I'll also go over the syntax on the slides as well. So that's going to be in our QoS agenda. So this was just a quick introduction video to kind of get you introduced to what we're going to be going over in QoS. And I don't want you to think it's too daunting, because QoS was something that in my early career did always elude me because there's so much going on. And the enterprises I've worked in, we've implemented QoS in a lot of different ways. There's per tunnel QoS. How do we apply it on a tunnel versus physical? Would we apply it on the tunnel? What if we have DMVPN and we have spokes that are sending less or more data? What kind of configuration do we have there? Do we want to do it based on the application? Do we have maybe a hardware tool that can do TCP optimization? And do we even need QoS? When we add encryption like GRE, do those QoS markings stay? Because we just encapsulated that IP packet. So there's a lot to discuss when it comes to QoS. And I highly recommend that you continue your learning, your deep dive into it, because it's an awesome technology once you start to get the hang of it or begin to master it. And then you go into your live environments and you see what the engineers have done, or maybe a way to optimize. I don't want you to be the guy always making changes, right? That can be annoying too, especially if something's working. But it is an awesome thing to learn as we grow as network architects. So that being said, again, welcome. Let's jump right into QoS. In our next video, we're going to be going over overview and the different QoS models. Thank you.